Fox News, Republican vice presidential nominee J.D. Vance campaigning in Nevada.
This is a state that former President Trump has never won. We expect the Senator, J.D. Vance, now the VP nominee, to spend a lot of time here along with former President Trump in the run-up to November because recent trends suggest that maybe they could have victory here come Election Day.
Fox Business's Grady Trimble in Las Vegas. Meantime, Vice President Kamala Harris is set to rally in Atlanta, telling reporters earlier she has not yet decided on a running mate. Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro is on the short list.
Thanks to the Biden-Harris administration, we will now, over the course of the next 5 years, connect every one of those 276,000 homes and businesses to high-speed internet.
Emphasizing on how his own economic agenda aligns with President Biden's and giving some credit to that infrastructure law. Harris, meantime, has taken a 1-point lead over former President Trump in a new Reuters Ipsos poll. That's within the margin of error, but closing a gap that had opened in the final weeks of President Biden's re-election bid. The White House says it does not believe all-out war is inevitable as Israel strikes back at Hezbollah over the weekend rocket attack that killed 12 children and teens in the Golan Heights. State Department Deputy Spokesman Vedant Patel.
Our commitment to Israel's security is ironclad. It's ironclad in the context of any threat that it faces from the Iranian regime itself or malign proxy groups like Hezbollah.
Today's Israeli airstrike in Beirut targeting a Hezbollah commander that it blames for that rocket attack. Hezbollah has denied responsibility. A mixed day overall on Wall Street as the Fed begins a 2-day meeting. The Dow rallying in the end, up 203 points at the bell. America is listening to Fox News.
As a mom, comforting my family is what I do best. Vicks VapoStick provides soothing, non-medicated Vicks vapors in an easy-to-apply stick. And it dries fast, so there's no mess. I use it to comfort myself and my family.
Thanks, Mom.
Vicks VapoStick, soothing comfort for the whole family. And when you need more comfort for yourself, try Vicks Vapo Shower Max for steamy Vicks vapors. Use as directed. VapoStick for use ages 4 and up. Vapo Shower Max use for adults only.
Did you know you can get your prescriptions for less at your local pharmacy? You can with GoodRx. It's the free app that can save you money on your medications. Just search for your prescription, choose the pharmacy and the price that works best for you, and then show your GoodRx coupon to your pharmacist at the drop-off counter. GoodRx works at over 70,000 pharmacies, including Walmart, Rite Aid, and Walgreens, and it works whether you have insurance or not. It's easy to save. Next time you drop off your prescription, check GoodRx. To start saving today, go to GoodRx.com. GoodRx is not insurance.
His father is a notorious drug kingpin known as El Chapo, already locked up for life. Well, now, Joaquin Guzman Lopez pleads not guilty to U.S. drug trafficking charges, appearing in court today in Chicago after helping the U.S. capture another accused kingpin.
Authorities say the son helped them arrest Ismael El Mayo Zambada, the leader of the Sinaloa cartel. An attorney for Zambada said Guzman Lopez and his men tied Zambada up and put him on a plane. The two were arrested in El Paso, Texas. He argues his client was forcibly kidnapped, but a law enforcement source told the LA Times this was a, quote, epic once-in-a-lifetime caper. The old man got tricked. The Sinaloa cartels behind much of the drug trafficking into the U.S., including of fentanyl, and President Biden said his arrest will save lives. Jessica Rosenthal, Fox News.
Zambada already appeared in court Friday, also pleading not guilty. A just-released report finds nearly 1,000 Native American children died in the U.S. government's abusive boarding school system, established to forcibly assimilate Native American kids into white society during a 150-year period ending in 1969. The report says the U.S. government should apologize and invest in programs that could help communities heal. Louisiana's highest court says an ankle monitor company can face trial for the death of a mother of 3.
The Louisiana Supreme Court says Mississippi-based electronic monitoring company AEM can be tried for negligent homicide in the death of Peggy Beasley, who was murdered by her estranged husband, Marshall Rayburn, in September 2021. Prosecutors say AEM did not report multiple breaches of a court-ordered security perimeter around Beasley's home, allowing Rayburn the chance to kill her. Rayburn had been wearing an ankle bracelet because he was out on bond, accused of raping Beasley.
Fox's Tanya J. Powers. Rayburn ultimately killed himself after killing Beasley. Again, the Dow finishes up more than 200 points, but the NASDAQ drops 222. Elisa Brady, Fox News.
Hello again, everyone. Let's check weather for Eastern Illinois, Champaign-Urbana, and vicinity. Pretty straightforward weather pattern the next several days. Heat and humidity, late night, early to mid-morning, late afternoon to early evening. Thunderstorm activity in a few places as we see back to the west of us again, closing in on parts of the area here later on this morning. Otherwise, it is areas of fog and certainly high humidity to contend with here for the next couple of mornings, too. Drier air, slightly cooler air settles in come Friday and more so for the weekend. But in the meantime, dense fog advisory in spots, partly sunny skies, and some thunderstorm activity in spots for this morning. Scattered and back in late this afternoon, the high near 90, light wind. Warm and humid tonight, couple of showers, thunderstorms in spots early, and again late patchy fog too late, low down to 72. Some fog around tomorrow morning, hot, humid, partly sunny, a late morning and afternoon thunderstorm risk, and a high around 91. More of the same on Thursday up to 92. We'll cool to 84 with a couple of showers Friday morning, then highs the mid to upper 80s, nights in the mid to upper 60s, dry weather for the weekend. For TVJ Broadcasting, I'm Peter Oltris, Greg Solgay.
Hey, what's up? It's The Drive with Tay and Piper, ESPN Radio 93.5. Derek Piper, Kyle Tosk, intern Jimmy Sebeski. We call it The Drive with Tay and Piper, which it sometimes is. Maybe other times it's The Drive with Tay or Piper.
The Drive with Tay and Piper once every 2 weeks.
Yeah, I'll own that. I'll wear that. I'll let my co-hosts take the majority of that brunt, but
football season, according to a source around here, might actually be The Drive with Tay and Piper more often than not.
Wow. That would be fun.
Allegedly.
I am looking forward to that very much. Football season and The Drive with Tay and Piper. You won't have us tomorrow. We have Cardinals Day baseball. We're off Friday as well. Cubs-Cardinals series at Wrigley. So we got, of course, Friday afternoon, which is a staple there. Wish I was out there in the bleachers, helping contribute to the Cup Snake and maybe catching, I don't know when Eric Fetty's going to pitch first there for the Cardinals and his new digs. Maybe Tommy Pham is roaming the outfield out there at Wrigley. But we're off both tomorrow and Friday. But you got us today. Going to talk plenty of football. As you know, if you listened in yesterday, and we talked about it last week, you have Illini football's training camp kicking off this week as it did yesterday. And plenty of media availabilities have been rolling in, which we very much appreciate. I know you got to hear from both Brett Bielema and Barry Lenny Jr. yesterday. We'll play some Aaron Henry today. We also got T-Raw Edwards, who's got a big task on his plate there on the defensive line with no Johnny Newton, no Keith Randolph. So going to hear from T-Raw on what he expects this season, how he's going to make more of an impact up front to make up for some of those big shoes that are there left to fill. So, but I'm excited. I was thinking today on the drive over, you do the math, and 4 weeks from now, we're 2 sleeps away from the opener. If you say a month from now, a full month, today is, of course, July 30th. If you go to August 30th, Illinois played their first game against Eastern. It's the day after, and it's officially gear up for Kansas. And that's such a massive game on the schedule. Of course, you can't overlook the Panthers and what the in-state school could present there in the opener, but Illinois should take care of business there. I know they should have taken care of business of Toledo last year, and that was a sweat. But the Jayhawks game, that's one, and I want to talk about that in the opening segment. If you could kind of power rank the home games this year, I need to get my tickets. I need to, especially for that one. Obviously, the Michigan game is one that's probably topping the list as far as what you would want to go to if you're a fan out there. But Kansas is going to be a huge measuring stick. It was last year. Illinois failed that test. Obviously, the season on a whole was a failure, not getting to a bowl game. But you've got Jalen Daniels marching back in here, what we imagine to be a healthy Jalen Daniels, Devin Neal, a running back, their top 3 receivers. And that was an offense that put up, I think it was 34 was the final total there in Lawrence. It felt like 54.
It had to be 34 in the first half, and then they took the foot off the gas. I mean, they were blowing Illinois out early in that game.
They were. I'm glad you mentioned the first half. It was 28-7 at halftime. I know they scored Daniels had like a crazy throw late in that where Illinois finally scored. It was 21-zip, and then it was a response by the Illini with Tip Ryman scoring a touchdown, 41 seconds left. Like, okay, 2-possession game. Let's get to halftime. Let's reset. No, they went down the field in 41 seconds, actually less, obviously, where they scored 28. And yeah, they'd only scored 3 more points the rest of the way. It felt like if they wanted to, they could have hung 54. So tall task for Aaron Henry and company. And really, that's kind of the big question that I want to start off with this show, and we're going to lead into what he had to say at the forefront of this camp is how much better can this defense get? Because if it's anywhere close to last year, talking about bottom of the barrel in the Big Ten, you're talking about Purdue hanging 44 and Northwestern putting up 40-plus against you in the season finale. Like, it's going to be a long, long year, especially with Oregon on the schedule, Kansas again, at Nebraska, at Penn State, and a lot of this schedule front-loaded the first half. You hope you don't get buried, and that defense is going to have a big say in whether it's going to or not going to.
Yeah, it's got to be a lot better than last year, and it's going to be interesting to see because on paper you look at it, and obviously you make some improvements in the portal, and Terrence Brooks is a big add, and you would hope that this secondary is going to be much improved from last year, which is pretty easy to do.
Low bar, right?
Yeah, don't be one of the worst in the Big Ten, and there you go. But losing Johnny Newton and Keith Randolph up front is massive. I mean, Johnny Newton single-handedly carried your defense for most of the year, a bad defense. If he wasn't there last year, I don't know. I mean, Illinois would have had a whole lot of problems.
Worst defense in the country, maybe?
It'd be down there,
at
especially Power 5 level.
Yeah.
It'd be down there. And you saw the impact when he was off the field in that Wisconsin game and others. I just don't know what to think, really. I think it should be better just based on the fact that you're bringing a lot of guys back, and I think the experience last year was so young outside of Newton, outside of Randolph. There was so much youth, especially on the back end. Now you get another year of experience. I think getting like Matthew Bailey back in the back end will be big, and obviously getting Akis and Coleman there on the outside. I think those two guys are the keys to your success on defense because you got to get on a guy like Jalen Daniels. You got to make him uncomfortable. You can't let him sit in the pocket and pick you apart because he dominated you last year, and you got to be able to contain him too and his legs. And I think those two guys, in terms of without Johnny Newton and just the fact that seemed like he was in the backfield every play, those two guys are going to be the key. Those two guys each got to have 6+ sacks this year to me for your defense to really take a step up and be a good defense this year, because those two guys are your most capable of really just wreaking havoc on an opposing team's offense and making it easier for your secondary as well, which just wasn't the case all that often last year, and that was part of the struggles on the back end.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know there was criticism to be had for Aaron Henry of maybe not being aggressive enough and sending some blitzes and disguising some coverages to try to make up for a faulty secondary, to try to get pressure in the backfield where you just couldn't rush with your normal front four. And that was a challenge where maybe it was a little too vanilla. And we'll see what adjustments and tweaks are made. Like you mentioned, there are reasons to think that back end can hold up better this year. I mean, it would be hard to replicate last year's struggles, and Taz Nicholson was extremely penalized and targeted, and just really anybody that suited up on that back end. I know it was a banged-up unit when you had Matthew Bailey, who drew a lot of hype and praise in training camp prior to getting hurt, or maybe it was even back in the spring time. I just know that hearing what Joey Wagner and Jeremy Warner talked about and the staff as well as far as what he was going to do at the safety position, that was a challenge to then have to adjust and be without him. So Terrence Brooks has a lot of experience, and he's played for a team that was in the college football playoff last year as a starting corner, and now he comes in, and assuming he's your number one guy, and you get the transfer from Ohio, Torrey Cox, right? Mm-hmm. He comes in, he's slight, he's played in the MAC. It's a big step up in competition, but put him in the slot.
5'8".
Put him in the slot. I mean, you got quicker guys out there that maybe he can keep up with and those type of things. But even just to give you some depth, obviously there's going to be the Tyler Strains out there.
Xavier Scott actually was pretty good last year. I think he could be good. Like if those two are your two corners, Brooks and Xavier Scott, I think that's a massive improvement from what you had out there last year.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're looking, I was pulling up the stats from last year. I know some of this is going to be painful, but give up about 30 points a game as a defense. As far as the passing game, opposing quarterbacks completing over 60% of their passes, about 230 yards per game, which ranks in the bottom portion of the Big Ten. Really also, though, it was the rush defense, too, that surprisingly wasn't better. When you had some of the names that we talked about up front, I think going into last year, we thought that there was going to be a strong front seven. And it obviously, that's where your better players were. And don't get me wrong, Johnny Newton was kind of single-handedly winning that Wisconsin game, at least on the defensive side of the ball. That Minnesota game in the second half when he comes back, he made a huge imprint on last season to be an All-American type, a first-team All-Big Ten guy, Keith Randolph. But you give up 150 yards a game on the ground, 4 yards per carry. I know that Purdue, when they rung up 44 on you, they ran for like 215 yards, and there were a number of teams that just –
Kansas did.
Yeah.
I wonder what Devin Neal's numbers were in that game. Maybe it was more Daniels that was killing you, but it felt like every time they ran the ball in the first and second quarter of that game, they had 15 yards instantly.
Man, and the way they spread you out, too. That just looked like a different animal. They had speed that was different than Illinois, and they just had a level of offensive innovation that was tough to keep up. Yeah, great point. 262 yards on the ground for Kansas. Devin Neal, 10 carries, $120.
Yeah, that felt right.
6 yards a carry as a team. Multiple running. They almost had two running backs go for 100. Neal 120. Their backup 98. Daniels ran for 25 yards, and they did whatever they wanted to offensively. So that's a scary challenge. I hope, and we could talk. Obviously, you heard from Lunny yesterday, and we've talked about the offense, and we'll talk more about it here in the coming weeks. But I'd hope that another year of Altmaier with upgraded. I think it's probably fair. Is it fair to say upgraded pass catching unit? I mean, Isaiah was awesome. Zakari,
I've kind of gone back and forth on that. I think it's deeper than it's been in a long time because I think even beyond those top two guys, like Malik Elzy is talented as heck, and you've got some other guys some younger guys. They've recruited that room a lot better.
Casey Washington had a good year.
I think
maybe I shouldn't say an upgrade, but it's possible that it could be.
It depends how good Zakari is. If Zakari is Isaiah Williams level guy this year to what Isaiah was last year, that's a big ask.
I think he's what he was at UTSA, right?
Yeah, if he's that guy, yeah. I mean, he was one of the best receivers in the entire non-Power 5 ranks there. That's what you need from him. He needs to be a true number one. But I think just the weaponry overall and the skill positions for Illinois is upgraded in general, especially if Caden Fagan can have the year that you think, and I think that running back room's pretty deep as well.
Right.
Should be interesting to see. But I have high hopes for Luke Altmaier. I mean, obviously he's going to be the key to everything, but I was impressed with how he got better last year. Like after that Penn State game, which was just a disaster, and he played a really poor game. I think he had 4 interceptions. After that game, it just looked like he looked a lot better, and then got hurt. And now kind of the lasting memory of his first season was, he got benched at the end of the year for John Paddock. And I if he hadn't gotten hurt in that Minnesota game, maybe you don't have that crazy fourth quarter comeback against the Gophers there, but I think we're talking about Luke Altmaier a lot differently because I liked what I saw from him in his last couple games.
Yeah, no, I'm with you for sure. I thought the Maryland game that he played pretty well in that one, correct, right? That you go on the road and get a win, and obviously a lot of focus on Talia in that matchup, but Altmaier matches him touchdown pass, 2 apiece, and he had some big plays on the ground in that one as well. He ran for 60 yards on the ground in that one, so that was a really nice performance prior to getting hurt against Minnesota for sure as well. And the Wisconsin game until the fourth quarter where things really dried up for Illinois offensively and then gave up way too much, as we talked about last week with the beef there and what Illinois was, 18 unanswered or something like that in the fourth quarter. But I'm with you. Altmaier impressed me, especially even on the front end when the season was looking pretty grim. That Kansas game wasn't a lot to be encouraged about, but I thought Altmaier showed he had some turnovers in the first couple of games, but the way that he broke off that long run and just showed some athleticism, showed some talent back there as well. And the Penn State game was tough. But ultimately, I don't know where to land, admittedly. I'm not I don't think I'm the most optimistic guy out there. I think that there are those that maybe are willing to be more of plant your flag on Altmaier and he's going to be awesome this year or something like that. I'm not saying that I'm going to be that, but I'm definitely not on the down end either, where some national people or people power ranking the Big Ten quarterbacks have him towards the bottom. I don't think that's fair. That's not where I would put it. Ultimately, there's good talent around the league, but I'm with you on that. But to go back to the defensive side, how much better do you think Terrence Brooks, as your number one corner over Taz Nicholson, can make a difference? I know that it depends in terms of the matchup, and if there's a dude on the other side at wide receiver 1, that could make a big deal. But can he? I'm not going to say single-handedly save your secondary, and we talked about some other options there. You talked about Xavier Scott being a nice option, but what do you think the difference can be having him versus Taz?
I think it could be pretty significant, but I think you need your entire secondary to take a step forward. One guy's not going to carry it, and I think we saw when you had so many different guys you could trust one-on-one to leave out on an island in 2022. Now, you had Devin Witherspoon, who you could put on the other team's top receiver, and you knew he was going to be taken out of the game, but you also had Quan Martin, and you also had a Taz Nicholson that year that was playing a lot better because he wasn't having to be your number one guy, and you had a safety group with Sidney Brown and with Kendall Smith that were really good and were able to make plays on the ball, and Sidney Brown was fantastic when you isolated him on tight ends.
Yep.
And I think you need that group to do it. Like if Terrence Brooks is locking down one side of the field, but then teams are attacking the other side relentlessly and dominating you, then that ultimately what Aaron Henry wants to do is he wants to be as aggressive as possible. Now, we didn't get to see it last year, which I think part of it was valid criticism of well, nothing else is working. At least be aggressive. Don't go down just sitting in zone, sitting in prevent defense at the end of the game and getting torched down the field. We want to see some aggressiveness. But also at the same time, you have to realize he had no trust in that secondary, and he shouldn't. And so you have to have trust in that group, and Terrence Brooks can be a big part of that. But if he's the only good player back there, that's not going to do much for you. Even if he's a number one corner, but the rest of your secondary really struggles, it's not going to make much of an impact. You need that entire group to take a step forward, which I think I'm optimistic can happen because I think that there is talent there. It was just so young and kind of thrown into the fire, and you didn't have a number one guy, that if Terrence Brooks can be that, and then everybody else can kind of fall into place and be a little more comfortable and some weight can be taken off their shoulders, I think it can be a much improved unit, which will make a difference.
Absolutely. I was looking through some of the PFF analytics prior to the show and just wanted to give a snapshot of what those say about Terrence Brooks versus Taz. And I'm not trying to pick on Taz. I mean, although some teams did last year, but highly penalized, gave us some big plays. But as far as Terrence Brooks, admittedly not the highest graded corner on Texas last year, although I imagine getting some tougher assignments as he did, a guy that started for 2 years there with the Longhorns. You look at 45 targets on the season for him, gave up 20 catches, 350 yards, 2 touchdowns, a completion percentage of about 44, 45%. That's pretty good. Illini fans certainly would take that. Did get burned for a couple of big receptions against Washington, but who didn't last year against Michael Penix and Roman Dunze and company. So I think one thing that will stand out, especially to the fan base out there, 3 penalties all year for Terrence Brooks, which is something that when I pull up Taz Nicholson's stats is going to be quite a contrast when you look at what he went through last season. His analytics, you look at 56 targets, 31 receptions. So while it was a 44% completion percentage, we're talking about 55% for Taz last year as far as what he gave up, 377 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. He was penalized 11 times, 11 penalties versus 3. And just there were a number that really were backbreaking and
just
stupid.
Too.
Yeah, downright
Some of
dumb.
them were
Spitting
really
in the face one.
Yeah.
Was that the Indiana game?
It was.
He had 3 penalties in that game.
Then I can't blame him if it's Indiana. I don't think that one should count.
I'm glad Jimmy approves of that one. But other than that, ouch.
It was just an
a rough year for him.
undisciplined group. Yeah, it was an undisciplined group last year, and part of that was the inexperience. But yeah, you can't be. There was so many, even when it felt like they were turning a corner in a game or they were actually getting a stop, then a flag would be on the field, and there was just a lot of handsiness. And that 2022 defense could get away with it because they were good and they had good technique and they were experienced, and you just can't have that. You can't have your number one corner committing 11 penalties. It just can't happen.
I think another thing too, as you look at, and we talked about the run defense, and not that you necessarily think of corners always, primarily, really probably towards the end there of run support and whatnot, or just let's talk about tackling in general, although it wasn't a run, but you mentioned Devin Witherspoon. I can't help but every time I hear his name, think of that swing pass against Indiana.
Yeah.
And almost decapitating that guy. But we've seen corners, if you try to run outside, come up and lay some big hits. I thought Vontae Davis was really good at that. But Taz Nicholson last year, look, his tackling grade out of 100 on PFF, 49. Terrence Brooks, dramatic pause, 81.
Wow.
It's a big deal.
For a corner, that's huge.
It's a big deal. So being able to come up and run support, even just allow a short to medium-sized gain and being able to make sure that's not yards after the catch and those type of things. That's what you expect as far as an upgrade, and that's good to see.
I do think, going back to the original question, though, just landing him has changed how we've talked about the defense. Like, just his addition, while maybe he alone can't completely shift the secondary himself, adding him makes you feel a lot more optimistic about what it could be than if you didn't have him and you were like, who in the world is our number one corner right now? Is it Xavier? Is it Tyler Strain? Is it who? And all of a sudden it completely changes things, and you feel like you're not very confident that you have a path to being a whole lot better than last year. But landing him was massive. He was the biggest addition of the offseason to me by far.
Huge. I'm with you. Between him and we've talked about it over and over again, between him and Zakari, just the outlook for me changed a lot for this team, because those were two big additions at crucial positions of need. I think especially corner, and then Zakari, just to give you another playmaker as far as the offense goes, with the familiarity with Lunny and the RPO, just fits so nicely stylistically into this offense. And Tyler Strain, though, getting that love from NCAA 25.
Yeah.
Is he showing out in your franchise or
dynasty? If you just, the only thing you knew about Illinois' roster was NCAA football 25, you'd think their secondary is awesome.
I know. And apparently that might have fooled a guy. I don't know. I'm not trying to dunk on anybody, but there was somebody at Big Ten Media Days, the one question they got fired off to Brett Bielema at the podium. I think it was a guy from the LA Times, somebody out, I think, who covers USC or something, and they pitched it to Brett that, hey, you've had really good secondaries here for the last couple of years, and what's key? What about this group and yada yada yada? I'm like, this guy did not watch a second of Illinois football last year.
Well, it's USC, so
right.
Like good defense and good secondary to him is going to be a little bit of a different than somebody else. So. For him, 30 points a game, that's like 15 for a Big Ten team. So
that's a good point, Jimmy. Yeah, their defense was it was brutal last year. And probably would have got them a couple more wins if their defense, I don't know what they ultimately ended at as far as their statistics.
7-5.
What's that?
USC went 7-5.
But as far as with 30 points a game for their defense, would that have been an improvement?
They would have beaten Washington at least, and that would have been a big win for them. That probably would have picked them up a couple more W's.
Yeah, no doubt. Before we catch a break, I did pitch out there as far as the must-have tickets or how you'd power rank the home games here. You look at, Scott said, tickets online cheap for EIU. We may take Friday off and go that Thursday night. And then Purdue games, he also has tickets for. So that's obviously a good one to have. EIU, it's a late kick. I don't want to play the old man game. I usually let Lon do that. Like, 8 p.m. on a weeknight. Those kind of things. I get it if you got kids out there, you got to get them to school and those type of things. That could play into it and watch. I'll be trying to go. My wife's like, "Are you kidding me? We got a 6-month-old and who will be going to bed before halftime." Anyways. I think that Kansas is really high for me. Would you guys put Kansas above the Michigan game? Or the Michigan game is probably just too cool for the 100th anniversary, but it's more of a winnable football game.
Here's my case for Kansas being number one.
Let's do it.
It's a night game, first of all. Night games are awesome. You get all day to tailgate, and then you're playing under the lights. There's nothing like college football under the lights, even at Illinois.
Absolutely.
Like you said, it's a winnable game, more so than Michigan. I think you'd need a massive upset to beat Michigan. Kansas, while I think you'll probably be underdogs in that game, it's a very winnable game. And also, you look at Illinois' schedule before that Michigan game, there's a difference, just the vibes around a game, going in there 1-0 with the entire season ahead of you with hope, hey, let's get to 2-0, what can we do? To going into that Michigan game where we'll have played Kansas already, you'll have gone to Nebraska, to Penn State, you'll have played Purdue, and then Michigan. All of a sudden, you could be sitting at like 2-4 heading into that one. The vibes are just a little different there, staring Michigan down. And that game will be great, but under the lights against Kansas, a game you could win early in the season with all the optimism still buzzing around Memorial Stadium. I don't know. I think that one might top my list.
What would you say, Jimmy? I know you're going to say Purdue, but
I mean,
outside of that,
I'll be at both the Purdue and Michigan games. So I'm going to do a back-to-back trip home here, which will be fun. I kind of agree with Colin for Purdue, like, just to compare it, it's kind of similar to Purdue's Notre Dame game. And that's a little different because it's a rivalry and there's some history there. But Purdue plays Notre Dame early on, and Purdue's likely going to be 1-0, and it's going to be after a bye week too. So we're really going to be itching to watch the Boilers play versus, later in the year if your record's not so good. It's those vibes. It's a different vibe. But then again, if you go in against like a 6-0 Michigan team that's ranked pretty high, that could be different as well.
True.
So I would say Kansas just because I think for teams that you're unsure of, the early season games seem to be a bit of a bigger deal. But, hey, if you rattle off some wins and maybe go in there like, 4-2 or 5-1, that Michigan game is going to be a bigger deal.
That's fair.
Let me add, too, that the Thursday 8 o'clock season opener, I almost feel like makes that Kansas game kind of an unofficial return to football. Not that Thursday night game no one's going to go or anything.
Oh, Kyle's already looking past the Panthers.
But it's the first Saturday game of the year and the first Saturday of college football back here in Champaign against a Power 5 opponent.
Is that the same day as the Texas at Michigan game?
Yep.
Yeah.
It's September 7th. I will be there as well. So
one to watch from the tailgate lots. Is that a day game?
That is big noon kickoff.
Sweet
already. So
because that's always one where look, if it's Illinois Kansas, I'm gonna be happy watching that versus any game that's on TV. But when you can balance out like a prime football game for like the tailgating that's on the TVs out there, and not like a contrast of should I go to the Eastern Illinois game or should I stay out in the lot or go home and watch Michigan against Texas on the TV, like. That's where it all comes together. I love when the plan comes together.
I'm hoping to that point that October 12th, that's the Illinois-Purdue game. I'm hoping that's at 2:30 or somehow. It's not going to be a night game, but I'm hoping it's at 2:30 because Oregon-Ohio State is at 11 a.m. Big noon kickoff.
That's also Red River Day. That October 12th is probably going to be the biggest week outside of rivalry week.
I love it.
That Oregon-Ohio State matchup is probably going to be the matchup of the year. I believe it's at Ohio State.
No, that's in Eugene.
Oh, is it?
So that's why it'll probably be a night game because I don't think you can get away with a 9 a.m. local kickoff.
I thought they already announced that was big noon kickoff that week. Could be wrong.
That might be. Now, I think sometimes they could do big noon kickoff night at noon, which kind of defeats the purpose. But I don't think you could really even get away with that because you're just going to have a whole fan base that's still going to be asleep.
Maybe they haven't announced it yet.
But
it
is at Eugene. But
I hope it is not overlapping with that Illinois game because I'm pumped for that matchup.
Are we sure? Can we bet on this that Michigan and Texas will be big noon and not get
that is already
that taken away for Colorado though? Like Colorado could show up and
when Colorado beats UTEP by 90 on the first whoever they play, they'll be ready to go for the Buffaloes.
I think that one's set in stone already.
All right, fair enough.
So
If you want to weigh in, you can. 217-359-2255 on the Max Twin City Recycling text line. We'll talk more football as we go along. Coming up next, continuing to focus on the Illini defense, let's hear from the defensive coordinator, Aaron Henry, and what he had to say about this unit as they kick off training camp. We'll also hear from T-Raw Edwards here before the show is done. We'll talk some baseball. I know we just had a text in about the Cubs trade where they ship Morel out and they get Paredes in. I heard you guys talked plenty about Fetty and Pham yesterday. We might have some trades break here before the show is out. So plenty to do, but Aaron Henry up next. Stick with us. It is The Drive.
At ABC Heating and Air, it's our promise to help you always be comfortable. Do you need rescued because you're burning hot? Do you need rescued because your air is shot? Call ABC Heating and Air at 352-5400 and let us rescue you from the heat. ABC Heating and Air, 352-5400. Can't you see you need to call me at ABC? Call ABC Heating and Air. That's ABC Heating and Air, 352-5400.
Do you need some extra cash? Are you getting the back-to-school blues with upcoming expenses? A special census is coming to campus residents around the University of Illinois. Make $18.83 an hour. Field representatives are needed August through November with Urbana's partial special census. Make $18.83 an hour. Visit usajobs.gov/jobs and look for the city of Urbana. Call 217-328-8264 for details. Or visit census.gov/communityjobs.
You've changed thousands of diapers, played hours of peekaboo and duck duck goose because you'd do anything for your kids. That's why it's so important to protect them with life insurance from State Farm. State Farm agent Kurt Lenschow will help make it easy and affordable to help you protect your family no matter what the future holds. Because for the people you do anything for, life insurance could mean everything. Call State Farm agent Kurt Lenschow in Champaign-Urbana today. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
At Pards in Urbana, the boots just keep on coming. They're known for their huge collection of men's cowboy boots, women's cowgirl boots, kids' boots, and even shoes. If you're searching for top footwear brands, look no further than Pards. They carry a wide variety, including Ariat, Dan Post, Smoky Mountain, Roper, Double H, and more. And if socks or accessories are what you need, they've got all your high-quality essentials. Since 1968, Pards has been serving their customers with high-quality merchandise. And if you haven't been to Pards in a while, a lot has changed. Go check them out just off University Avenue in Urbana.
At Carpet Weavers Flooring and Furniture Gallery, we're flooring people with amazing service, great design advice, and unbeatable selection and the best prices in town. It's the perfect time to update your home with waterproof flooring, carpet, hardwood, tile, and more. Then complete your rooms by shopping our incredible selection of furniture and accessories. We also offer great financing options. Carpet Weavers Flooring and Furniture Gallery. We're flooring people.
Tim Onstad, Dixie Chomper and Dedicated Diesel. How about my Dixie Chomper? Got any deals?
Yeah, I was in one of the farm stores yesterday. I won't say their name. And I saw a Husqvarna mower for $6,500 zero turn. I guarantee I can get you on a Dixie Chopper, the king of zero turn mowers. Much better quality for at least $1,000 less.
And plus you service it.
Yes, Andy and Jeremy will service them right there in Urbana and take care of you.
Walk through that process of getting a new Dixie Chopper.
You go in and see Andy, and he'll lay it out for you, the prices. There is financing available. There are various discounts for first responders, veterans. It goes on and on. We'll get you in and want to get the right price. Andy will take care of it. You can call Andy at 217-328-0562. Visit him at 1313 Triumph Drive in Urbana.
You have money laying all around your house. You just don't know it. And no, I don't mean selling your great-grandma's good china. I mean all the old metal items you don't want to use or get rid of. Don't pay someone to haul it away. Bring it into Max Twin City Recycling and get paid to have it taken off your hands. They love new customers and are more than willing to walk you through their process step by step. Come check them out at 2808 North Lincoln Avenue in Urbana.
Starting it over is what we do at Max Twin City Recycling.
Here's another home improvement insight from Kramer Siding and Window. New roofing and siding are a winning combination that can instantly change the look, feel, and function of your home. Our Kramer Siding and Window team takes pride in being an Owens Corning Platinum Preferred contractor able to offer a best-in-the-business 50-year warranty. Pair it with preservation siding in your favorite style and color, and your home will be a showstopper. Start today and save 10% on roofing and 25% on siding. Call us, click on KramerSiding.com, or visit the showroom in Champaign.
Back on the drive with Tay and Piper, ESPN Radio 93.5. Lindy weighs in on the Max Twin City Recycling text line. I'm playing All-American, but my secondary is awful in NCAA with Illinois. I think a lot of people probably feeling like their secondary and defense as a whole are awful when you're playing on All-American. Have you guys seen the videos of Judkins on Ohio State with the spin moves?
I have.
That's ridiculous.
Can't tackle anybody, man.
There's people that are literally hitting the circle button and spinning their way all the way down the field because you can't tackle him when he's spinning.
Well, you know
the
the
cheat code.
The funny thing about the spin move, when does an actual running back ever spin? I mean,
it's rare.
It's not a common move at all.
Right.
But it's a
And they might
cheese
do it
move on a
once.
video game. Yeah.
They might do it once in a right. It's not something you see a ton of. It's more the juke left, juke right, whatever.
With a stiff arm,
yeah.
Or like
You'll even see hurdles far more than a spin move.
You're not reeling off 5 spin moves in one scamper.
Yeah, that's cardio.
It just doesn't happen.
Or the right stick where you angle it up, and I've seen people do this, and the guy just shoots up the field like 3 yards on one cut, and it's like impossible to get him.
Yep.
So that one's frustrating, but
not that I want to turn this into, although I do, but I don't. I'm not going to. I should say I'm not going to. I wouldn't mind doing it. Turn this into an NCAA 25 show. I started to dabble with my first dynasty last night. Recruiting's overwhelming, man.
It is at first, isn't it?
I had to watch a couple YouTube videos to feel like I was prepared. I started one with Air Force.
How's that option?
Yeah, so that recruiting board is not fun.
No, it's not.
How's the option treating you?
I haven't played a game yet. I was mostly just going in to mess around with recruiting. I made the mistake. We had FCS West as our first game, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to sim this so I can get to my next week of recruiting, and we lost.
Of course.
Yeah, so growing pains.
What you got to do for that if you don't want to play a full game is you got to jump in and super sim it. Where you can like just skip past, and then if it gets to the fourth quarter and your team's in trouble, you hop in and save them. That's what I do.
Yep, I'm learning my lessons. I might have to start that thing over. We can't have that on the resume to kick off my tenure there. The coach's name is Rocket Rogers.
Oh, that's awesome! Nice.
So that's not one that we want to start out with, but. Aaron Henry, not to put him in the same category as Rocket Rogers, who loses the FCS school in his first debut. But a season that he's trying to obviously overlap and grow from and bounce back from his first as a D coordinator. Look, he was a part of a really, really good secondary in 2022, secondaries coach there with Devin Witherspoon and Sidney Brown, Quan Martin. And now we're going to see if he can get the most out of this secondary group, get the most out of this defense as he moves into this 2024 season. So as we talked about, there is a gauntlet of a schedule on the front end, especially Kansas. The offenses you'll face, Nebraska's supposed to be really good with Dylan Raiola, the 5-star quarterback. Penn State with Drew Aller and their running back tandem. Go on down the list. We'll see what Michigan looks like offensively. Donovan Edwards is going to be a beast, and then Oregon is probably about as good as you'll face, especially on Illinois' schedule. So that's all in the first half of the schedule. How is Aaron Henry approaching these opening weeks and what he wants to get out of that unit? He talked to the media yesterday. Here is Aaron Henry.
Aaron, what can you get accomplished in this first week, and especially these first couple of days in just helmets and shorts?
Yeah, well, we got a bunch of new faces, right? You want to see how guys run around, how guys handle the install, right? I think one of the most important things is just, especially the new guys that are here, gel with our guys who are already here. How do they handle how we practice and how we operate and do things? And so you'll get a feel, I think, as the week progresses, at least until you put in pads, who runs well, right, who can cover well. You'll get somewhat of an idea about that. Guys up front, it's a little harder for that, just because those guys are banging in the trenches so often. And we're going to be in helmets one day or a couple of days, and then shells a couple of other days. And so I just think as we progress, if we just can show improvement from coverage standpoint, getting properly aligned, right, communicating, right, just all those fundamental things that that don't require, right, for you to have on pads, right. If we can just do that right, I think I'll be able to see progression in some of the new faces and the guys that have been here.
In the back end, you got a combination of returning guys, guys coming back from injury, and then some new faces.
Mhm.
Is that a group ready to have a bounce back season?
Yeah, man. I mean, I think anytime you bring, right, some new energy in here, right, bringing some transfer guys in here, I think it just creates a level of competition, and we all know competition benefits this program, right? The more competition we can have at these positions, right, to where guys don't feel like they've already got the starting job, the better off we're going to be in the long run. And so I think for the most part, we just tried to, in the off season, we just tried to address areas where we feel like we needed some competition, we needed some depth. And I thought we did a really good job of that. And I'm looking forward to seeing a lot of these guys compete, especially in the secondary, right? Obviously bringing in some new faces back there on the back end.
Where's Terrence Brooks fit in that mix?
Oh, I mean, he's gonna be up there with the Xavier Scotts, with the Caleb Pattersons, with the Chase Canadas. All those guys are gonna have rotate and be given ample opportunity, right? And so it's just a matter of like, how do they handle what we're giving them, right? And so I think today is gonna be a how do they handle the new calls, the new adjustments to the calls, right? Because they're coming from a completely different system, right? And this is our first time doing ball with some of those cats. And so from an athletic standpoint, right, I felt like the guys that we did bring in, I feel like they fit what we do athletically. And so it's just a matter of, right, how do they line up, how do they play, how do they understand how we play defense and leverage standpoints and where their help is, and just going out there and playing football at the end of the day.
What's different? The increased competition. What gives you confidence that secondary can step forward?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, we have a lot of guys with a bunch of career starts and playing time on that back end, right? I think Torrey Cox has over 20 career games started, right? Obviously, Terrence Brooks has over 20 career games started, right? And then you add Xavier Scott, you add Miles Scott, you add Matt Bailey, I feel like we got a plethora of guys now who have seen a lot of football, right? I know Caleb Patterson had a chance to get his feet wet in there last year, right? Chase, obviously, I'm coming in here now, right? Juice Clark, I mean, it's just so many different, Tyler Strain, just so many different positions and guys on the back end who have had like winning game reps under their belt. It's just going to benefit us, right? And I'm just very intrigued to see how they handle that going against them, because I think we got a really good wide receiver core. So I'm just really intrigued to see how they handle that going against those guys.
Any difference for you in how you want to attack fall camp in year 2 as a coordinator?
I think the most important thing is, right, like between obviously the whole portal windows and the time allotment we have and being able to get some new guys on the staff, right? Like this season can be like really long, right? Like college football used to end around early January. I think the national championship game is going to be played on January 20th, right? And so one of the biggest things I'm trying to do is develop depth at all our positions. Right, because here's the reality: we're playing a very, very physical conference, right? Like a guy may be a starter for 2, 3, 4 weeks, and by the time we get to week 8, it's somebody else. And are they prepared for it? Are they ready for it? And so, like, one of the key things in going into this fall camp program is just developing depth, whoever it is, at all of our positions defensively, right? And we feel like we have that at every position, but some of the guys that could be backing them up, maybe they didn't play as much, right? I feel good about guys we got in here with a bunch of stars, but there's some other guys, right, that maybe hadn't played very much, and we have to develop that depth. Maybe they can become starters. I don't know, but we have to develop depth at each and every position, because as you know, as the season goes on, right, you may lose a guy. A guy could get banged up, and that could alter some of the calls that you make based on that skill set and what that player can do. And so I just think going into this season, right, obviously the goal is always to play well defensively, but I think more important, right, we want to develop depth at all those positions so that we can be competitive at every level.
What do you want to see carry over from spring ball?
Just the competitive nature we had, man. I think that obviously we didn't have some of these faces that we have in our program now, but I thought guys competed. I thought that they got better every single practice. You know, I didn't think there was a regression. I felt like every day, every install, we put something in, right? Guys took it in stride, learned from it. They started to understand concepts, right, on a much, much higher level. You know what I mean? Especially some of the younger guys in the spring. And so I just want to see them take that step every day we walk out onto the field, right? And so if they get beat today on a certain play or a certain look, I don't want that same look to beat them 3 days from now, right? Learning from the mistakes you made, or the split that the wide receiver gave you, or something that the tackle did, right, if you're a guy up front, right? Learning, obviously, how to play with your hands and getting off blocks, but just like fundamental things, right, that I felt like as practice went on in the spring, we got progressively better at, right? These guys have been training for the last 8 weeks, and they had a week off, right? And so there may be some unknowns when guys haven't been playing football and they're coming from a week off, right? I hope that they worked out to some capacity, but we don't know, right? We don't know, right? We got them here in the building, right? Obviously, we're preaching hydration and taking care of your body and all that good stuff, but I just think as we progress into each and every practice, if we can improve at something, right, from a mental standpoint and a physical standpoint, right, and as we progress throughout this fall camp, we can get better at that every single day. I think we're going to be pretty good.
3 new coaches on your side of the ball. Is it integrating those guys, is that something that's behind you from spring ball, or is it a process that continues?
Well, I think anytime you have just new people coming to your building, right, like they go through the mode of understanding how we do things, right? And I mean, all those cats have been phenomenal. They understand this profession. They've been in this profession before. It's a lot different than trying to develop a player who hasn't been in your program. You know, they understand the expectation for the most part walking in the door, right? Coach just does some things different that a lot of other places do. And so, but getting them ingratiated to what we do, it hasn't been a challenge at all. Those guys have been incredible, right? They really protect me, and our staff included, just my blind spots, right? Like Coach Arch may bring up something, right, that helped him along the way in terms of a schematic thing that can help us, right? Coach J-Mo may bring up something that'll be beneficial, right, to start off our meeting with. I mean, those guys add something different, right? Coach Parker said something in our staff meeting that was incredible, right, in regards to speaking for yourself, you know. And so all those guys, they got a different flavor, in which I love. They're all different, but yeah, it's so awesome to see us come together and kind of gel this thing, right? We hadn't been in the fire together as a whole, right, but as we I mean, Archie and obviously Clint was here throughout spring, right? But as we kind of progress, right, the goal is continuing to build these relationships. And I will say it is expedited with coaches than it is players, because we're probably spending a little more time together as coaches than the players are.
Aaron, the defensive front gets retooled a little bit, but how much is versatility, flexibility with what you guys do up front is important, and how much do you have in there?
Yeah, it's huge, right? It's huge. Coach, obviously, testament to Coach J-Mo. He's done a tremendous job with those guys up front. But, you know, like a Johnny Newton comes around every, right, 5, 10, 15 years, right? Like, I mean, that cat was different, right? He obviously, he elevated the guys around him, and, right, to lose a guy of that caliber, right, we just got to make up for it in other areas. And we believe we have, as a whole, just as talented guys as a whole. And that's why I said earlier, just developing depth at all those positions around the board, right? Briggs has been doing a phenomenal job. T-Raw has had an incredible offseason, right? Alex Bray, I mean, just some things that Alex Bray is going to be able to do, right? Between Seth and Gabe, what they're doing on the outside. I mean, just it's just so many different pieces of guys we know they can play good football. They've had unbelievable off seasons, right? And we're just still trying to, like what's going to be the 2024 Illinois defense, right? And so I think the start of that is going to be this evening, right? To see how we fly around, to see how we have success, right? To see how we make plays, right? To see how we take the ball away, right? And so, and just know as coaches, right, we're always trying to get an advantage in some capacity, right, to push our guys over the hump, right? If it's taking the ball away, right, whether it's making a cut up or having a celebration, right, during the course of a meeting or during practice, right, when a guy takes the ball away, right, but just really highlighting those moments when guys do have success and being able to teach from the moments when they don't.
That was Aaron Henry, your Illini football defensive coordinator.
Right.
309 and Kyle both say right back to you, Aaron Henry. So we'll see if he did have a lot of rights in there, and hopefully this defense can take the right turn towards improvement and rising in the standings there in the Big Ten. And I think it's going to be interesting. One thing that was disappointing last year, I mean, there were a number of different things that were disappointing, but when you see Johnny Newton and Keith Randolph on a defense, and then obviously you're giving up 30 points a game, that's something you don't feel like should happen. And there wasn't necessarily a point where there was a natural progression forward. Like, that was one thing. And good, look, they're different rosters. They're different collections of talent, and we know what the 21 defense ultimately became in 2022. But when Ryan Walters took over that defense in 21, and yes, Brett Bielema was part of that and part of last year as well, but that team gave up 37 points to UTSA and Zachary Franklin early in that season. They got blitzed by Virginia on the road, 42 points, Brennan Armstrong and company. But there was a turning point where the second half of that year, they were giving up, I think, less than 21 points a game. And you saw a real step forward. They were part of that win, very memorable on the road at number 7 Penn State, where you win 20-18. You, of course, got to lock down defensively to do that. You beat a ranked Minnesota team on the road. You hung in there with Iowa in that ball game as well. So that's where that didn't come to fruition last season with last year's team. What you could talk about the flaws in the roster. You can talk about a couple of injuries, but there wasn't that elevation, which I think was disappointing. And whether that was the players needed to own that, whether it was Aaron Henry going through his lumps as a first-year D coordinator, or whatever it ultimately is, I think we'll have some further explanations maybe with what this team shows this year and what some guys can do if there is that player development, that progression. And look, people will be happy if it's the forefront of year 2 and we actually see that rise and whatnot. But hopefully there is that. I don't know what it's not like an epiphany, but it's that inflection point of change and being able to have it work, because last year just didn't.
Yeah, and you can see where maybe this defense could have a similar type of I'm not saying necessarily in terms of the 2021 defense, like you're going to turn into one of the best defenses in the country all on a dime like they did. But I think you could see that a little bit this year, where there might be some growing pains early, and there might be, especially playing a team like Kansas and a team like Penn State and some of those teams in the first half of the season, where I do think that there could be more of that natural progression this year as some of these guys who haven't played in a while due to injury, as you kind of try to adjust to life without Johnny Newton there. And, it's not quite as experienced a defense as it was back then. So I do think hopefully you can just see steady growth throughout this year. Not asking this defense to be the 2022 defense, but an improvement and a steady improvement as the season goes on. When you enter that back half of the year where you have a more favorable schedule, where if you are going to get to 6 wins, it's probably going to happen in that back 6 games of the year. You're going to get tested early, but to learn from those tests and to really start to have guys settle into certain roles and improve as the season goes on is going to be huge this year. Because, like you said, we just didn't see that last year. Our lasting couple games of last year, I know there was Iowa mixed in there, which, I mean, if you don't hold Iowa to under 20 points, you're doing something horrifically wrong. But then you had Indiana put up 42 on you here in Champaign. That's a bad Indiana team. And a Northwestern team come in here with some help from 2 special teams fumbles, put up 45, I think they had.
Yep.
So
I think that was a 45-43 loss.
Yeah. So that's not where you want to be this year. As much as I'm optimistic about this offense, playing games in the 40s is not going to get you to a bowl game this year if you're Illinois.
John Paddock had to throw for 500 yards against Indiana to win that game.
Crazy.
Credit to him for doing it, but, man, that defense gave up a load of yards in their own right, and that was a down-to-the-wire finish ultimately. Illinois was pulling that thing out, but the defense giving up way too much to a team like that. And we went through it. What Kansas did, that was a great offense, and one that we didn't see really a lot of. What, Jalen Daniels after that game didn't play for a while, right? Or was he out the rest of the season?
Yeah, I don't, because he was questionable coming into that. I know the whole week leading up to that, we weren't sure if he was going to play. He played and dominated, and then I think
And I think he was out again,
I
wasn't he?
I don't know if he played after that. Maybe he played one more game.
That was his final game. No, wait, you're right. Never mind. He played a couple more games. He played Illinois and then 2 games after that, Nevada and BYU, and then he was done on the shelf for the rest of the year.
So an injured Jalen Daniels did that to your defense.
Oh, boy. And we know what a healthy Jalen Daniels looks like. He's one of the best quarterbacks in the country. One that put up 5 touchdowns through the air against an Arkansas team in a bowl game. Had Kansas, what were they, 5-0 to start the 2022 season?
They got College Game Day, didn't they?
Maybe,
Is
yeah,
that right?
they lost to TCU,
Man.
and TCU wound up having a ride to the national championship game that year.
So, yeah, no doubt. Kansas is scary. Penn State's scary. Oregon's scary. Some scary matchups there in the first half. But, yeah, if they can weather the storm and pull out maybe a game or two that they're probably not going to be favored in, and then that home stretch could be huge for this team. And I'm just excited to see it all play out on the field. We're not that far away. We'll talk more football as we go along. We're going to have T-Rod Edwards, some audio from him. We'll get to some of your texts on the Max Twin City Recycling text line, 217-359-2255. If you want to weigh in, we'll be back. This is The Drive.
You're listening to WSJK ESPN 93.5 Tuscola, Champaign-Urbana, your home for the St. Louis Cardinals.
With the group insisting the project has completed a goal for unified conservative vision, though former President Trump has disavowed and criticized the effort as Democrats have tried to tie him to it, calling it an extreme agenda. The acting director of the Secret Service gets a Capitol Hill grilling over security failures in the Trump assassination attempt.
I went to the roof of the AGR building where the assailant fired shots, and I laid in a prone position to evaluate his line of sight. What I saw made me ashamed.
Ronald Rowe telling a Senate hearing he can't defend why that roof was not better secured. But as the investigation continues, also pushed back on some lawmakers' calls to start firing people quickly for accountability. Police in England clashing with a crowd outside a mosque near where 3 young girls were stabbed to death in a dance class. The suspect is a 17-year-old boy. America is listening to Fox News.
As a mom, comforting my family is what I do best. Vicks Vapor Stick provides soothing, non-medicated Vicks vapors in an easy-to-apply stick, and it dries fast, so there's no mess. I use it to comfort myself and my family.
Thanks, Mom.
Vicks Vapo Stick, soothing comfort for the whole family. And when you need more comfort for yourself, try Vicks Vapo Shower Max for steamy Vicks vapors. Use as directed. Vapo Stick for use ages 4 and up. Vapo Shower Max use for adults only.
Did you know you can get your prescriptions for less at your local pharmacy? You can with GoodRx. It's the free app that can save you money on your medications. Just search for your prescription, choose the pharmacy and the price that works best for you, and then show your GoodRx coupon to your pharmacist at the drop-off counter. GoodRx works at over 70,000 pharmacies, including Walmart, Rite Aid, and Walgreens, and it works whether you have insurance or not. It's easy to save. Next time you drop off your prescription, check GoodRx. To start saving today, go to GoodRx.com. GoodRx is not insurance.
A win in court for 3 students after pro-Palestinian protests at the University of California, Los Angeles.
3 Jewish students suing UCLA, alleging they were subjected to discrimination during on-campus protests over the Israel-Hamas war, that they were blocked from getting to class, and that the school failed to create a safe environment. A federal judge ordering the university to come up with a plan to support Jewish students and prevent discrimination by August 5th. Police breaking up thousands of protesters at UCLA in May as tensions over the war escalated. A UCLA rep says the school is committed to maintaining a safe and inclusive campus, holding those who engaged in violence accountable, and combating anti-Semitism in all forms.
Fox's Kristen Goodwin. Fallout over part of the Olympics opening ceremony might play out in court. French prosecutors ordering police to investigate complaints from a DJ and LGBTQ plus icon that she suffered online threats and abuse after performing in controversial scenes during the opening ceremony in Paris. The Academy Awards still in search of a host.
So according to Puck News, ABC is said to have made offers to both Jimmy Kimmel and John Mulaney, both of whom passed on the opportunity. Fortunately for the Academy and its host network ABC, they still have plenty of time, with the Oscars not slated to air until Sunday, March 2nd. Kimmel has been the go-to host for the Academy Awards, hosting it 4 times, and is a favorite but Kimmel ultimately said no, while Mulaney has been talked about ever since he won over the Oscar crowd at the Governor's Awards earlier this year. He said in the past he would do it, but decided to pass this year. Michelle Polino, Fox News.
Tomorrow, the Fed weighs in on the U.S. economy. Today, a mixed finish on Wall Street. The Dow up 203 points. The S&P ends lower, though, and the NASDAQ drops 222. That's more than 1%. I'm Lisa Brady. This is Fox News.
Hello again, everyone. Let's check weather for you. Central Illinois, Champaign, and Van Vicinity. One of these rinse and repeat weather patterns around here for the next couple of days. Late night, early morning fog and thunderstorm chances. Early to mid-morning and late afternoon thunderstorm chances with heat and more humidity around the area. Dense fog advisory till 8, keeping an eye on thunderstorms making their way across parts of west central and central Illinois. Maybe some clustered activity before the morning is done and back in later this afternoon. The high around 90. Warm and humid tonight. Late night fog with a shower thunderstorm or two around this evening. And again, late night tonight too with a low down to 72. Patchy fog tomorrow morning, maybe a shower thunderstorm in the morning, back in for the afternoon. Better odds there, a hot, humid, partly sunny high of 91, up to 92, and a couple of thunderstorms around early and late in the day on Thursday. Morning shower activity on Friday, turning partly cloudy, a bit less humid, the high around 84, and somewhat lower humidity for the weekend. Dry skies, high temperatures into the middle 80s on Saturday, mid to upper 80s Sunday and Monday. For TVJ Broadcasting, I'm meteorologist Greg Solgay.
It is The Drive with Sam Piper, ESPN Radio 93.5. We are checking in and waiting to see any blockbuster trades here in the final hour of the MLB trade deadline. Jack Flaherty, a name that I'm particularly interested in. Not that I think he's coming back to St. Louis, but he's one of the bigger names on the pitching market out there. Blake Snell. I was telling you guys during the break that I think it was John Heyman that attached the Cubs as one of a handful of teams that were involved with Snell or reached out about Blake Snell. I think that would be interesting. Are the Cubs kind of buying, or they just make one move that
kind of threading the needle? It's a long-term buy.
Sure.
Because there's no reason to buy any rentals like you did last year with Candelario. Paredes and Nate Pearson are two guys that will factor into the next couple of years. But they also sold Mark Leiter earlier today. I think they will probably sell a couple other bullpen guys. I wish they would have sold Jameson Taillon. I don't think that's going to happen anymore, especially after they started him last night and he got shelled. Great decision, the eve of the trade deadline. But
yeah, you're salty about that one. You think that's a bad move?
Well, here's what I'll say. I think based on what the starting pitching market has looked like based on the package that the Marlins got back for Trevor Rogers, a guy who's had one good year in his career, I think you should be capitalizing on that with a guy who's having the best year, one of the best years of his entire career this year, kind of out of nowhere with 2 years of control left after. His value will never be higher right now, and I don't believe he's the pitcher that he has been so far this year. Now, maybe no one else does either, and so you're not getting the proper value from it. But I think it'd be a good time to try and capitalize on that and get a real prospect of value. I'm not going to be upset about keeping him because at the end of the day he's been good, and you can never have too much starting pitching. But my real issue is, how do you start him last night? That's my one issue. Regardless of what you wanted to do, how do you start him last night in Great American Small Park to get teed off on the night before the trade deadline? That one made no sense why he started last night. Regardless of whatever they were planning to do, any possible trade targets pitcher should not be starting 24 hours before the deadline. That was really stupid.
Is that Craig Counsell's fault?
Not necessarily. I mean, it's probably a combination.
Yeah. Front office and the manager having a conversation about that, just opening up a possibility for him to be dealt. I know you guys mentioned, you talked about the Rogers deal, and you guys were talking about during the break that they got one of the top 15 prospects out of Baltimore in that deal, Connor Norby from Baltimore. And look, I mean, Rogers' ERA, it's gone down some. At some point it was over 6, I feel like, but recently It's in the mid 4s, but what the Cubs maybe could have commanded from the Orioles, who have a plethora of young talent to dish around to try to upgrade, and it's really been that starting rotation that's been a focal point for them with the injuries. That would have been a team I would have been trying to call up and see what I could get for a Jameson Taillon.
And both those guys, Stowers, I don't know how you say it, and Norby, I think were at one point top 10 guys in the Orioles system, which is at one point before a lot of these guys graduated was the best in baseball by far.
Yeah.
That's 2 top 10 guys from that. I mean,
Man.
for Trevor Rogers. And then like you say
They got Zach
Kikuchi,
Eflin too. I mean,
you say Kikuchi from the Blue Jays, who has like a 4.75 ERA. He gets 2 top 5 prospects from the Astros. Like starters far worse than Jameson Taillon are getting big packages. That's all my gripe is. I feel like it would have been a good time to capitalize on that. Now I don't know what's going on behind the scenes. Maybe Taillon isn't viewed quite as well as you'd think around the league, and maybe the $18 million that he's owed the next 2 years. I mean, those two guys are making less than 10 each, I think. So maybe that's part of it, but it seems like, especially, and like Eric Fetty going, and he got. Now I'm actually surprised that he didn't get as much. Like the White Sox, I thought could have done a lot better, but they still got a major league 24-year-old and 4 prospects in that deal. Like it just, the starting pitching market, everyone wants starting pitching. Every contender could use Jameson Taillon's 3.20 something ERA.
how did the Cardinals only have to give up Edman to get Fetty
and a prospect?
And a prospect.
To get Fetty and Pham.
Right.
I'm not sure. It is worth noting, though, the 2 guys we just mentioned are both lefties and Taillon's a righty. So, I mean, the lefty thing might add some more value. Now, I think I was a little surprised, too, at the amount of return both of those guys got. But some teams really prefer a left-handed starting pitcher when you don't have one. In Baltimore, I don't believe that they don't have a lefty arm in their rotation. And Houston has Fromber, but I think that's it as well. So it is nice to get that other side of the arm getting dealt. Speaking of lefties, Tanner Scott's on the move. I don't know. Did we mention that on air yet?
We have not, no.
Going to the Padres, and it looks like the Dodgers were interested in that one and came up short. We've seen the Dodgers and the Padres a handful of times going after the same pieces. And, Max Scherzer was a guy that was rumored to be a Padre for a time and then winds up going to the Dodgers. So those two, and that's getting a tighter race. Padres have been hot since the All-Star break, so Dodgers, you might be getting a little nervous about the NOS.
Tanner Scott return's crazy, too. Number 2, 4, and 5 prospects from the Padres going back to the Marlins for a reliever.
For a rental.
Reliever.
Now an all-star, a legitimate all-star, he's throwing 100 from the left side. But for a rental reliever, that's a little bit much.
It is a seller's market, and that's been made clear.
And I think the Rays are making the smart decision here as being kind of that first, middle of the pack team to just say, you know what, we're selling. We're gonna gut our team. Doing us 500 does us no good. Where we're at,
Maybe the Cardinals should do that,
right? You trade away like Mason Wynn.
If the Cardinals,
I don't want to do Mason Wynn.
If the Cardinals wanted to trade Ryan Helsley, they could get a haul for him.
But no,
that would be a tough
the Cardinals, I think, are in a spot where you got a playoff opportunity on your hands. I think you got to go for it.
Yeah, but are they? I guess they're kind of going for it.
But they weren't
with Fetty.
reckless, though. I think that was a smart decision.
Fair enough. It is. I know Scott, big Mo fan here. He's not. I'm saying that in jest on the Max Twin City Recycling text line. Me and Scott are on the same page with John Mozeliak, but you are going for it when you get Fetty. Like that's an addition. Certainly has been one of the better pitchers in the American League. I would like to see maybe a little bit more aggression, especially. Yeah, you're talking about a lineup that's been pretty subpar and underwhelming, and there's more than one need. I think as far as starting pitching and kind of, I don't know what Fetty's contract looks like.
You have him for next year at $7.5 million, so that's a big part of it too.
That's nice. That's nice for sure. But there's not a lot of long, even just medium-term optimism for that starting rotation because of how old it is, and just talked about the lack of pitching prospects. So. Yeah, and while we were talking prior to the All-Star break, like, the Cardinals sitting there in the second wild card spot, they're not there anymore. I'm not saying they can't get back there because it's a small gap. They're 2 games out of the wild card. But like you mentioned, Jimmy, like the Padres have gotten hot, the Mets have been hot, the Braves are sitting there that they're having a disappointing season, but they're still the top wild card team. The D-backs are now ahead of the Cardinals. The Pirates are tied with them. So it's by no means a guarantee that, and if you look at run differentials, the Cardinals are by far the worst among the teams that are going for this and are firmly in the hunt for that wild card spot. So they've been disappointed. I don't know what you probably couldn't get much from Paul Goldschmidt right now, even though I can't believe I'm saying this. If you dealt him, it wouldn't move me at all. Like I wouldn't have any fret or what have you about him. Nolan Arenado's been super disappointing as well. So I don't know. I wouldn't want to sacrifice the future. I wouldn't want to trade Mason Wynn. For a deal for Jordan Walker to be involved, it'd have to be a big piece coming back. It'd have to be like a Crochet type of deal or someone that's a big bat, that type of thing. But I don't know. The Cardinals are going to kind of do what they do and sit there and soft buy, so to speak, and probably not go anywhere.
But by the way, speaking of the future for the Cardinals, who you hope is the past for the Cardinals, looks like the Nationals are looking at Dylan Carlson.
Take him. What do you want?
Carlson for Floro?
Lane Thomas has already been dealt. Dylan Floro would be a very good add. A guy that's got a ERA in the low twos out of the bullpen. A former Cub. He's bounced around a bit, but he's found his spot. I think that would be a good addition for any team. And I don't think he's going to be a super high price.
I'd put him in a trade for Soto. Juan Soto, right?
From the Yankees?
That's still on the table.
Is that too much, though? I don't know if you could part with Carlson for that.
I just think now, I think. I wouldn't have done it last trade deadline, but this trade deadline, I am comfortable putting Dylan Carlson in there with a top prospect to get Juan Soto.
It's a hot take.
It is.
Yeah. Speaking of Juan Soto, the Cubs could have had him for Christopher Morel, 1-for-1. Just take the contract.
Last year?
In the winter.
In
this winter.
That was a rumor floating around.
That
wasn't going to happen.
I don't know.
You would have had to sweeten the pot. Like Christopher Morel could have been the headliner maybe at the time, coming off of last year.
But I mean, let's just say they sent the package that they did. Let's just say they send Biggie, Ty Johnson, and Morel, and the only real payoff is you have to take Soto's contract on. Get him and extend him, man. That bothers me a little bit, even though I love Christopher. But I like the Paredes grab as well. But that's frustrating in hindsight that seemed that was a possibility.
Juan Soto's going to be a free agent.
Yeah, if the Yankees,
you're already dreaming, aren't you?
If the Yankees are stupid, he'll be a free agent. If the Yankees are smart, they'll extend him.
I think I would imagine.
I doubt he's leaving in New York, but if Jed Hoyer really wanted to try and save his job, he would. Now, you obviously got to get the okay from ownership as well, but
for that amount of money,
he would get in that bidding race and make Juan Soto say no to a Chicago Cubs offer. That is my dream. It's not going to happen. That's why it's a dream. But
I remember when the Cubs' dream was Chris Bryant and Bryce Harper playing together in Chicago.
That was another dream that I thought is a lot more realistic a dream, but apparently it wasn't.
Can I ask you guys about the Pirates? I see here there's a tweet. I haven't confirmed if this is I searched it on Google. Is it a trustworthy account? Brian De La Cruz going to the Pirates from the Marlins.
I'm seeing that as well.
I was about to ask, the Pirates been too quiet.
They moved Quinn Priester, who's one of their young arms. It makes sense. It's a crowded rotation. To get anything back for Eddie pitching is probably smart for them. I honestly don't think that they should have been super aggressive this year. I think they're too many pieces away. I think you play it out. If you make the playoffs, you make the playoffs. Obviously, that would stink if you made the playoffs and didn't really make any improvements to your team. But I'm guessing the haul for De La Cruz is probably not super heavy. I mean, he's a pretty solid player. He's 27 years old, though, so it's not like you're getting like a guy that he's going to be the future of your team. But that lineup is really dry in terms of production. They desperately need some more help offensively, but I always felt like this was an off-season problem, not an in-season problem.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And I don't think anybody out there is expecting the Pirates to make like an LCS run or anything like that. Now, their starting pitching could make it real interesting when you get in a postseason series with Skeens and Jones and Mitch Keller, if their lineup can do anything. So I wondered just if they could do enough to make it where they're a squad you don't want to face. And they're probably already that if they can get in to the playoffs, but they definitely needed more juice in the order. De La Cruz, they do get 3 years more of control beyond this season when you look at arbitration. Someone that's hitting 245, 18 home runs, OPS in the low 700. So decent piece for them. Probably comes at a reasonable cost as well. So I don't know what else maybe they could have done. The Marlins certainly selling off here. We talked about it off the air, and Jimmy had an interesting nugget that I didn't know. I saw a bottom line, reading the bottom line on ESPN or whatnot. Jazz Chisholm homers twice in his first game, or one of his first games with the Yankees. And but you added an even bigger tip there that made it a really interesting story.
He was using Aaron Judge's bat for both home runs, I believe. I
didn't know that.
A clip of him in the dugout after the second one holding up the bat, and Michael Kay, is that Aaron Judge's bat? So that was eventually confirmed. That it's hard to believe, and we've seen this happen before with A-Rod using Ken Griffey Jr.'s bat after his bat got thrown out. That was all the way back in before I was even born. But it's interesting that a guy who's got a thinner frame and Jazz can use a 6'7" behemoth's bat and have that much power on it. So I guess maybe Aaron Judge's bat's the thing. Maybe Aaron Judge isn't all that good. Maybe it's just the bat. It's like
it's the shoes,
like
Jordan,
in Everyone's
right?
Hero with Babe Ruth's bat getting lost.
I haven't seen that.
It was a cartoon movie.
Oh, okay.
One of my favorites as a kid.
Well, I've been watching. I know everybody's heard it way too many times. I'm starting to repeat stories like Lon. I guess that's when you've been on the air too long. But Babe Ruth, obviously a prevalent part of the Sandlot. That's a baseball song.
My favorite movie.
By Babe Ruth. Watching that every day at the old Piper household. That bat had a ton of pop in it last night. 2 home runs for Judge and 2 home runs for Chisholm.
Wow.
They showed out there in Philly in a high-profile matchup, Yanks and Phils, 14-4.
That thing corked or something?
Oh, man.
My goodness.
Might have to check it, right?
That's nuts. What's Judge on pace for? He's got 39 with 2 months to go.
I think he's about even with what he did 2 years ago, which was a
just shy
historic
of 60,
season,
right? Or did he get to 60?
63?
Oh yeah, okay.
And he broke the Yankees and American League record.
That's right.
Right now, he is leading the major leagues in home runs with 39, RBIs with 99, OBP 446, slugging 696, OPS of 1.142, which is higher than his OPS 2 years ago. And he's got the most total bases, but also most double plays in the AL. So there's the one negative.
Pick it up, Aaron.
Come on, Aaron. You stink.
Pujols was that type of guy, too. When he was in his prime, he was always Mr. Double Play.
He's the most all-time.
Is that right?
The most double plays ever in a career, which not surprising. But that means he's not striking out a whole lot.
He's slow as molasses, but, man, he doesn't have to run very fast when he hits it over the fence or belts one off the wall. Send in a couple.
He had like a streak, though, of like most consecutive steals without getting caught. And it lasted like a decade or something like that.
Is that right?
But I think he had like 15 or something like that in a row without, because, I mean, he was just smart enough to know when to go. Anthony Rizzo was very much similar like that, where he was not a super fast guy, but knew when to jump. Yeah, Pujols with 117 career steals.
Nice.
And 426 career double plays, with the most ever.
Wow. Yeah, Albert was one of those base runners that you love when he'd like outsmart somebody, be aggressive when someone wasn't expecting it, but he'd do some things that you're like, oh no, he's gonna run into an out here that's a little bit pushing the envelope. And that reminds me of it was Albert, right? Albert's last season in Milwaukee, where he like thinks he has a read on the pitcher and just takes off from second. You guys probably don't remember because you guys were. It's one of those things if you're watching the team on a day to day, like he just was out by a mile. That was early enough in the season where he was hitting like low 200, didn't have flashed a couple home runs here and there, But it's like, I don't know. This might just be a sideshow type of thing. It wasn't until later in the year where
my goodness.
His second half was Judge and then Pujols as far as OPS. Give me that back, please. That was something I wanted to watch every night.
That was cool that we had Pujols chasing 700 home runs and Judge chasing 60 kind of at the same time.
That's right.
So that was fun to watch. Other than for the Cubbies, that was less fun to watch because we played St. Louis a handful of times there, and we also played St. Louis with, I believe, Corey Dickerson's 10 at bats in a row getting a hit or something like that. So something where it was crazy, where he just
crazy. You remember that?
Well, you know me. I remember everything, I guess.
Kyle, what's going to get your heartbeat pumping to watch the Cubs here from here on out?
That's my answer. That pause. Not a lot comes to mind.
No?
Well, you got Shoto pitching every fifth game, which is fun to watch.
Yeah, I mean, I think I just know what a lot of these guys are, and they're just not making the playoffs this year. So my focus is fully on next season. If you get any MLB ready prospects in the next 40 minutes, which is unlikely unless you're trading Tyone, then maybe I would be excited to see if guys like Ben Brown and Jordan Wicks come off the injured list at any point. And I'll be excited to see what Isaac Paredes looks like, because that's got to be your third baseman of the next 3 years, hopefully, if all works out. But I don't know, man. It's you lose interest fast when you're 7 games back of the postseason.
No doubt. I do see Jack Flaherty is trending on X right now. I don't know if that's just a bunch of speculation, people asking where he's going, or if there's some rumors out there. We'll try to dig into this during the break and get you the latest news on what's out there regarding the top trade targets still on the market as we lead up to the final stages of this deadline. Kyler has a interesting text that I want to tackle as far as what game he's going to for Final Line of Football coming up this year. And I should mention at some point, initial thoughts on the Hard Knocks Bears trailer that's out there. That, speaking of heart pumping, got things going for me today, and that's right around the corner. The Hall of Fame game coming up on Thursday, and plenty of football here in the coming weeks. T-Rod Edwards, before we get out of here, we'll talk some more baseball and a little bit of Hard Knocks. A lot to do. This is The Drive.
The world's largest sports book right at your fingertips. The Circus Sports Illinois app is ready for action. Now you can download, fund, and bet like a pro from anywhere in Illinois. CircusSports.com. If you or someone you know may have a problem with gambling, call 1-800-GAMBLER or text ILGAMB to 833-234.
Your favorite Mexican restaurant, El Toro on West Springfield in Champaign, is still open 7 days a week despite the construction on West Springfield. If you're craving those mouthwatering Mexican dishes, just enter from the east. When you see the barricade at Springfield and Kenwood, look for their special driveway. It'll guide you straight to El Toro. El Toro will be serving up your favorites all through the construction for the next 5 months. Open daily and ready to welcome you. El Toro, your destination for authentic Mexican cuisine, even during construction.
Look at that. Look at it. A pile of junk, a stack of rubbish, some buckets of yuck. Are you tired of looking at it? 2 Men in a Junk Truck is available for junk removal or dumpster rentals to get rid of your heap of muck, accumulations of dreck, and mountains of cast-offs. Go to 2meninajuncktruck.com and schedule your time. Let us help you make room for what matters most. 2meninajuncktruck.com for your junk removal and dumpster rentals.
Matt Rogowitz is our law enforcement official of the month. He is currently the University of Illinois Police Department Officer of the Year. Why did you want to go into this work?
The reason why I wanted to go into policing was probably due to my family. Father's in the military. My uncle is a police officer in Louisiana. So it's always been a big part of my life, being a first responder within my family members.
Okay, and you're physically fit, and that's a big part of your regime. Do you try to stay in great shape? Does that really help from the standpoint, not only just physically that you're kind of imposing looking, but mentally.
It helps physically and mentally. It plays a big role at work, and I like to share my experiences with my coworkers as well. So I think that helps mentally as a team. So working out, helping them work out as well.
And so when you are on a call, does the adrenaline start going, or depends on the situation? How's that work?
It does depend on the situation. Your adrenaline does get going. It just depends what call you're going to, but always trying to remain calm is your key component there, and then just responding and then providing that support to everybody that you're able to.
Ow! A spring just hit me.
Mom, the couch is broken again.
It's about time we get rid of that clunky couch and look into buying a new one.
What about Two Men in a Junk Truck? Their professional moving team does a great job assisting with downsizing, home renovations, and clearing out old items you need hauled away.
Wow, it sounds like it'll make much more space in this house once the couch is hauled away.
I just pulled it up on my phone. You can schedule an appointment online at twomeninajuncktruck.com.
Do you need some extra cash? Are you getting the back-to-school blues with upcoming expenses? A special census is coming to campus residents around the University of Illinois. Make $18.83 an hour. Field representatives are needed August through November with Urbana's partial special census. Make $18.83 an hour. Visit usajobs.gov/jobs and look for the city of Urbana. Call 217-328-8264 for details. Or visit census.gov/communityjobs.
The 25th annual Region I Golf Outing for Special Olympics Illinois athletes will be hosted by the University of Illinois Orange Golf Course Friday, August 2nd. Registration and lunch starts at 11 with the shotgun start at noon. Appetizers and prizes are between 4 and 6. Support this great event with Rosati's, Dick's House of Sport, Apex Clean Energy, and Roadshow Catering. There's cash awards for the teams and gift certificates for individuals. It's $100 per golfer and $400 per team.
Create a team today and get started. Your efforts will support local Special Olympics Illinois athletes, giving them access to life-changing programming all year long, like competitive sports and training, health education, as well as personal and leadership development.
Support Special Olympians in Region I. Be a hole-in-one sponsor with Consolidated Communications and Stevie J Broadcasting. For details, visit soill.org.
The Pirates are hot on the deadline. Isaiah Kiner-Falefa going to Pittsburgh as well. Who is that, you might ask? Well, he's a utility player, can play shortstop, third, and outfield. I don't know, he's been playing with the Blue Jays, admittedly. I haven't caught a lot of their games. Jimmy probably knows.
He can catch, too. He's got a gold glove in his career. He hasn't caught in quite some time, but one of the rare bright spots on the Blue Jays this year. He's having his best career season offensively, hitting .290. So a good grab for the Pirates. You can kind of plug him in anywhere, and they need a lot of holes to plug in that offense.
Yeah.
So I like them making some of these kind of lower key moves. I don't think they should push the chips in quite yet, but I think you're building towards your future here. They need some offensive help, and if you can shore up some of it now, maybe some of it over the winter, they could be a team to look out for in 2025.
We'll have Jimmy keep his finger on the pulse of what's going on with the deadline. About 30 minutes left. Follow on X and the updates there, and can keep us informed as things break, if they do. I know that Tigers fans want to see them get Flaherty on the move because he's on a one-year deal, see what they can get for him, and we'll see what else shakes out here. But let's transition back to football. I do want to get to Kyler's text on the Max Twin City Recycling text line. He says, I pitched it out there, what games you want to go to on the home side for Illini football, and Kyle gave his argument for Kansas. Michigan's, of course, going to be up there. But as far as the road slate, Kyler's going on the road. He says, I'm going to the game in Oregon, and I'm hoping we can keep it within 4 touchdowns. Could be a challenge with what Oregon's loading up with. Dylan Gabriel. By the way, they get Bo Nix, has a stellar year for them. And then here comes Dylan Gabriel, who was sensational in that Red River last year, and just a guy that can sling it around the yard. They always have a ton of speed. Autzen Stadium, too. That will be a heck of an experience it'd be great if Illinois can hang tough and see what they can do out there. But, boy, that will be a tall task going out to Eugene.
If the line is 27.5, are you taking the points on the Illinois side?
No. I mean, there's time to see if this defense truly is improved, and we're gonna learn what Luke Altmaier looks like. Going on the road at Nebraska, going on the road at Penn State. We'll have played Michigan by then. We're gonna learn a lot about that team by the time we get into late October. So, as of right now, I would say no. I think that's gonna be probably a blowout win for Oregon, and man, it could be a rough stretch for Illinois, and we're hoping it's not going to be, but you get into the meat of that schedule before things turn, and within a slate of 5 games, you get at Nebraska, at Penn State, you get the home game against Purdue, but then you got Michigan and then at Oregon. That's a bear of a 5-game stretch, and that's on the back end, and maybe the team's hungry to turn some things around if you are at that point, but that's not where I'd want to get that done if I'm Brett Bielema and company. That's a tough one to